Hi, friends. You are watching Simply SCAdian, no title required, with our special guest tonight, Scholastica Joycors. But hey, look at this. Lucas is back. All right, Lucas, take it away while I do tech stuff.
Okay, hey everybody. It is awesome to be back. I know that no one missed me because you still had Zoph and she's wonderful at this. And then I can't thank the guest moderators enough for filling in. Once the world kind of turned back on, I wear a lot of hats in Mundania, so I appreciate that, and hopefully I'm back for a little while, and we'll get on. So again, I'm as always, I'm going to remind you of what we do here at Simply SCAdian, no title required. We like to showcase those people in the SCA, the movers and the shakers who are not titled yet, who maybe haven't had that happen for them yet, or maybe don't want that to happen and are happy to work along with what they're doing, apply their trade, work on their craft, whatever it is, without getting that necessary reward. And lots of those people. So as we continue here on the show to showcase those people who make it work every day for us in the SCA, think about those people in your neighborhood who might work on the show. Again, we look for all types. I mean, we're looking for anyone. I hear next week we have somebody who is a brilliant potter. Today we have somebody who is a wonderful storyteller and works with the arts. But for the most part, I mean, we'll take fighters, we'll take brewers, vinters, writers, musicians, anybody you can think of. That's who we want to talk to. Those regular folks in the SCA. So tonight, our regular folk, okay, I use that term loosely. We have Scholastica Joycors with us today, who is a storyteller within the SCA, but also a published author without. And for many years, Dean of Performing Arts at Penzic. So we are really looking forward to having Scholastica give her take on the SCA. So welcome to the show, Scholastica.
Thank you.
So we'll start off with the usual question we ask all of our guests. How did you find the SCA?
I think the SCA found me. My friend Tatiana, she said, I have this event that I'm going to go to. I think you would really like it. And by the way, could you help me make 200 hand pies for this event? And so we made 200 hand pies for a pie eating contest. And that was my very first event. And my second event was Penzic. And I took both of my kids with me.
So what was it like for you? Because my very first event was Penzic too. But so what was it like for you? Oh, yours too, Lucas.
Mine too.
So what was it like for you to attend this huge, amazing event?
It was awesome. I really enjoyed it, and like I said, I had my two kids with me, and my son was 11 at the time, and my daughter was 14. And so it was kind of like watching them go and do all those things. And the reason we went to Penzic, are you ready for this? Is because my son was failing school. And in order to get him back through seventh grade really quick, we went to Penzic to do homeschool. And we used all the events that were there to get him through.
How did you come up with that idea?
Because my friend Tatiana is a tutor, and she was a retired school teacher, and she was trying to help me with that. And so we use things like them going out in the field and looking at all the plants and all that kind of stuff. Oh, that was science. And then he did the astrolabe, and that was more science. And then he did games, and so we counted the games in math, and we looked at all the different things that he could do. And that was back when Merlin was still around, and he actually helped Merlin go, taking him up and down to the fields for archery and all that kind of stuff. And so he got to do all these different things that counted for schooling, and it was great.
That's awesome. For those who don't know, Merlin was an archer out of the mid-realm who passed away a few years ago, but he was wheelchair bound. So how wonderful of your son to help him get up there and back.
Yeah, he just Merlin just kind of latched onto him and said, "You need to take me here," and he did because he's a good kid. And he helped out with Merlin for like 2 years. Because we came back the following year, and Merlin saw my son, and he said, "Hey, I need your help." And Sean goes, "Okay." So, we did that. My daughter connected with a bunch of the other teenagers, and there was just a pack of teenagers running around doing stuff and playing games and hanging out at the willow tree and all those things. And so it was a good experience for them. And that first year, they have over by where the shop is, the Pensick store, there was a gal that was running a cooking competition. And so my first year, I entered the cooking competition.
So, what did you know about period cooking before that? Had you studied it or learned not known anything?
No, I knew a lot about cooking, and my friend happened to know a lot more about period cooking, and they provided the ingredients, and then we had to make something out of the ingredients.
So, how
Huh.
did you do? How did you do in the
I got
competition?
second.
And what did you make?
It went on for like 3 days. We made like oat cakes. She gave us oats, and so I sat out. I sat out on the concrete or on the road with a bag and a stone, and I beat the daylights out of the oats until I made it into flour. Yeah, yeah. And there was something else we did. Oh, we made shaved ice, and we covered it with honey. And let's see, there was we made some kind of a bean dish. She had all sorts of allergies, so we had to watch out for certain things. We couldn't use anything with capsaicin in it, and we had an argument about whether paprika was capsaicin or not.
So then my question is, were you interested in, for lack of a better term, period life, medieval life, Renaissance life, whatever you want to say, before you got interested in the SCA? Or was it like, hey, you went to this event and you're like, this stuff's pretty cool, and you started to kind of learn as you went?
Well, with a background in theater, you get interested in a lot of things.
I am well aware. Yes.
I mean, my undergraduate degree is in theater education. So I was, and I have done costumes for things like Midsummer Night's Dream and Twelfth Night. And, so I was already into doing the costuming part of it because I did a lot of costume work for community theater. And so I already was interested in that part of it. And cooking, I've always been interested in. So they just kind of went hand in hand. So I
You
now
still,
call myself the culinary bard because I like finding stories that have food in them so that I can
again, why do I
tell the
not know you?
story
Why?
and make the food. It's a
You two
good
would be a match
combination.
made in heaven, a
Oh my
friendship
God.
made in
Yeah.
heaven right
We
here.
got all right. So no, so I gotta let's jump real quick, just so Scholastic is aware. So we have this plan. By we, I mean I have this plan that we're gonna do Simply Scadian live. We're gonna do a live show from Penzig at some point. But that we need a cooking segment.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh, that would be perfect.
See what I'm saying? Like, so then we go over and the cooking's all set up, and we go over, and then she tells the story while she makes the food. See, this thing writes itself. So,
Yes,
so
it,
you're
yeah.
you're in.
Oh
You're
no,
in.
I just kind of slid right into that one, didn't I?
I
You
listen.
did.
I
Wait, should we also mention that he wants to do this on the performing arts stage?
well, yeah.
Oh, that would be interesting. Now let's just say now there are certain things that you probably wouldn't want to do on that stage would be like anything that requires frying.
Well,
A
yeah.
lot of the foods from the Arabian Night stories, there's a lot of stuff that is fried besides their brains.
Um, so you brought it up, so let's go right into it. So one of the things that you've been doing during the pandemic that I find so impressive, you do your alliteration of the day,
Right.
but then you also have been telling stories every single day of the pandemic since March 2020, almost 2 years. You've
Yeah.
been telling stories. Tell me what brought this about. How did this happen?
You want the truth or do you want me to lie?
Whatever makes you
And that's the
happy.
storytelling no
What's
matter
the better
what.
story? What's the better story?
The real story is that for years, I mean, I only started in 2011 with playing with the SCA, and people have been telling me that my stories are not period, and I keep saying you guys are full of it because stories are all based. There's some bit of truth in them, and you can look at the historical evidence from them, and that documentation is just not good enough for them. So I said, fine. I said, we're stuck at home. Let's do something they cannot tell me is not period. So I started doing the 1001 Nights, and people have really seemed to enjoy it. And when I finished with those, that took me almost a year to do the 1001 Nights, and that was doing 2 or 3 stories a day because they vary in size. And the biggest part of doing those stories is looking up all the words and the names so that I can pronounce them correctly. Because there are so many names, I have no clue. You can't just sound them out because you're going to be wrong. Because they're spelled one way, but they're pronounced another way. I'm finding the same thing with all the Greek stories, because the names, you look at it and you want to say Hercules, and it's not, it's Heracles. So you have to you have to go researching. So I've had to do a lot of research, at least on the pronunciations. And I actually think I made a post one time of the inside of my book where I had written down how to pronounce the words inside of my book. So I have all these pronunciations. And but mostly I did it to say, all right, you guys, I do know how to do period stories that you cannot contest. And that's how it started. And it was
So,
just so much fun. I just kept doing it.
and if people are interested in listening to these, where can they find them?
I have a YouTube channel called Totally Stories.
There you go.
And that's where my alliterations are as well.
Okay.
So I guess you call them playlists. So I have a playlist just for the 1001 Nights. And then I did Shahnameh, the Persian Book of Kings. And right now, we are in the middle of Gods and Heroes of Ancient Greece. And I'm doing the Tales of Troy. And I thought that was going to be a short set of stories. It's a very long set of stories. Like I said, I told you earlier, I'm about ready to kill off Achilles. It's great.
Spoiler alert for a 5,000-year-old story, but yeah.
But there's a lot of bits and pieces in those stories I don't think most people are aware of.
Oh
Most
yeah, no.
people just think it's just his heel, But he was really, he had a good side, and he also had a side where he was a total jerk.
See, again, I go back to why we don't know each other. So in my mundane life, I'm a theater teacher and an English teacher of mythology.
Ooh.
So I feel like, yeah, there's an evening to be had just kind of swapping stories, I think.
Right.
But so 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 you said you have a theater background. Obviously, that lends itself to storytelling in the bardic and whatnot. So how did you come by, essentially, for lack of a better term, the office of dean? Were you performing at Penzig and then kind of fell into it, or?
Well, my very first year, I went and I saw some of the things that they were doing, and I went to some of the classes that were being held for performing arts, and that's when I met Lorelei. And it was like 2 years later, when she was complaining there was nobody around to help her, and she was trying to set up tracks and stuff like that. I had told her the year before, I said, look, I said, I have been putting together and running storytelling conferences for years for the Florida Storytelling Association, because I used to live in Florida. And I said, I'm willing to help you. And she finally took me up on it, and she made me her deputy of the Bardic track, and I ran the Bardic track for 2 years. And she was looking for somebody to take over as dean, and I said, and she finally decided that I was good enough, and I, so I ended up becoming her co-dean the following year, and that was a really rough year for her because she got fairly sick, and I ended up doing most of the running at Penzic. And the following year, I was dean, and I've been dean since '47, and we're now in 49.3.
See,
And
Take
we don't
three.
know whether or not it's going to happen or not, but we're already planning for it, just like I have for the past 2 years. We go through, we try and get people to sign up for, to teach classes, and um, we also have to do the whole thing where we have to have people sign up for performances and schedule all those performances, and it's a it's a huge amount of work to do that. And so right now, they have not opened up university yet, so we haven't started to promote people signing up to teach classes yet. It's kind of a hurry up and wait. And for the past 2 years, they've waited until either the end of April or May 1st to tell us that it was being canceled. But I still have to plan regardless of whether we get together or not. So by the time I finally retire and Zoph takes over,
who? What? No.
I probably will have been dean longer than anybody else. Because I'm not discounting the fact that I still had to do all that work,
Right.
even though we didn't meet.
And the work that week doesn't seem like it's that difficult. And I have to share that, I've been going to Penzic for a long time. Um, and my first Penzic was 1993. So I'm coming up on almost 30 years of Penzic. Wow, I'm really old. Thank you. So anyway, so I remember when Midair and Azrael started the performing arts tent when it was this crazy idea and they had to really beg and everything else for Penzic. And at the time, it was just run on our own. For the year I ran it, it was just me and at the time my household came and helped me out like with Strike. And it has become so organized. So you're very blessed in that so I just wanted there's some history of performing arts at Penzic.
Oh yeah.
So what is it like for you an average day working the performing arts space at Penzic?
I can't do it without a team. That's for sure. It's crazy for anybody to even think they can do it by themselves. But pretty much, I have to get there early before Penzic even starts to make sure that everything is there. Did they bring the right amount of chairs? Did they bring us the right number of tables? Did they put the tent in the right place? Because the last time we got together, they put the tent in the wrong place, and we couldn't get between two of the tents. And we had to put an extra uh, pop up in the back because otherwise you couldn't make entrances without being standing outside in the rain. So every year is a little different, but the basics are still the same. And once we get through making sure everything's there, then we have to go through the whole process of making sure that the trailer's in place and that all the stuff is there for us to be able to assemble the stage. The first week is all about putting up the stage and making sure that the lights are set. And those first few days, they start at like 10 o'clock in the morning and we run until about 5 o'clock in the afternoon for the first 3 days. Just getting things set up. And since I've been dean, we've been able to put the stage up and get it and strike faster than we've ever been able to do. So we're real excited about that. And it's been a blessing having that new stage. I was there when the new stage came and we had to learn how to put it together. That was fun.
Yeah,
And
so
then,
what's the wormwood wiggle? I don't think we asked Wormwood to explain the wormwood wiggle. What's the wormwood
okay,
wiggle?
So when we get all the platforms out and they're in place and all the legs are attached, you have to go underneath all those platforms and bolt them together. And in order to do that, he has to wiggle underneath the stage to put them together. And then you watch him as he wiggles to get back out. And he's absolutely filthy by the time he gets out of there. And we actually take a fan and set it down as close to the ground as we can so that he can push some air back there. Because underneath that stage, it's hotter than Hades.
He's watching the show right now, so I'm waiting for him to post a comment about the wormwood wiggle.
Well, I just
Wormwood
told one year I just said, oh, he's doing the wormwood wiggle, because that's what he does, is he wiggles underneath the
wiggles
stage.
down. Yeah.
Yep. And nobody else does it as good as he does.
So if you could look forward in time 10 years from now, what would you like to see performing arts at Penzic to be like?
Well, I would like to see all the classes spaces filled. I mean, we're generally are overbooked for the class space, but I have managed to get us a new loud space for when we get together the next time. So that will allow us to have, I would like to see more youth theater. What I would really like is I would like a movable stage. I'd like to have a semi bed where we've built a stage on it and we could take it and go park it somewhere. And you could have live performances during the day outside. And then you could just close it up, you know. So it would be something that you could take to different places around Penzic, just pull it out and set it there. And you could have performances anywhere. I think that would be awesome. But as far as the stage goes, we just don't have enough time for all the people that want to perform. I have to tell people no. And that's sad, because people want to be able to perform. I would like to be able to have another space to where you could have a bardic circle during the day, because not all of us like to do bardic at night. I personally, I can't handle the smoke around the campfires that much. Absolutely destroys my throat. So I don't do a lot of those. So it would be nice to have, we only have one the whole time we're there. And that is over on Runestone. We do the, where we have no pointy crowns or anything, So anybody can come and not feel like there's not going to be any peers that are going to be judging. So I would like to see a few more daytime live, performances that I could do on the stage, but I don't have time or space because, as you well know, known world players, they are there every day from 8 or 9 till noon, every day until they perform. Once that stage is open, you guys are on stage practicing. And so it doesn't leave much space. So it would be nice to have another stage somewhere where we could do other performances. And unfortunately, the amphitheater is in rough shape right now. But if it had lights, we could do more performances at night.
We had talked about that for the event that shall not be named that happened last year at Cooper's.
Yes.
That it would be really cool to get, and it was Lucas's idea to get those barn lights and get a string of barn lights at the amphitheater to start having nighttime performances there.
Well, we have electric. They have an electric box there. So, it's a matter of how do we get into that to be able to string some lights so that you have enough lighting. Either that or we make up some footlights that we use, electric, not electric, but, we can put batteries or battery-powered lamps or something in them so that we get some footlights as well as some overhead lights. Because we were fortunate enough the last time we got together that we were given some LED theater lights, and we were very excited about that. And I'm hoping to get a new light board, and that would be very nice.
Fingers crossed.
Yes, yes. So I keep working on those things, but I would just like to have some additional performance space so that people who want to perform have the opportunity to perform. And you can only put so many people in that tent.
But it's also, I think, the thing that I've learned is I did a concert there once, and I've learned from that experience. And although it went fine, and I have no complaints about the job that I did, and the audience was very happy, I'm not a concert performer. So I
Right,
think that it's also some people think that they're made for performing in that venue, and they're not. And they're not. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people, and I'm one of them, if you want me to do theater, yes, I'm absolutely the queen of the stage. However, Zoph, the storyteller, it just didn't work for me. I need a more intimate setting than I can get from a
right,
stage.
right. Which is why if we had lights at the amphitheater, it would be a much better space for that kind of, because you have a better connection with your audience.
Yes,
And you
exactly.
don't get that same connection when you're up there on that big stage at Penzik. And of course, you have no control of sound whatsoever in that space. And you never know how many people are going to be in the audience. So,
Right.
but that's, I just would like to have at least one additional performance space that I can use after, say, 7 or 8 o'clock at night.
Mhm.
Because our lights are down so far by 7 o'clock, you really have lost a lot of your light, at least so that you can see what's going on the amphitheater stage. Not that we still don't try and do things over there, but it's very limited without light.
Um, all right, we're going to go into another direction.
Okay.
What is Revenge of the Stitch?
Revenge of the Stitch is an event done by one of the local baronies, in which it's a 24-hour sewing competition. And you create a team of people, generally five to up to six people in a team, and you decide and you make one entire outfit. And of course, they would like you to do it all by hand, but some of us don't. I mean, it is creative anachronisms, right? I'm not stuck in the. Anyway, that's a subject for another time. Anyway, so we stitch an entire outfit in 24 hours, and basically we're up all night long, or we might take a little nap. Um, but you create a whole outfit. I have been doing it for several years with different groups of people. One time we did a Russian outfit with 8 layers, and I think we were nuts because there was only three of us.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
but they want you to do everything.
do you have a fashion show at the end? Because we have it, it's called Golden Seamstress here in the Mid Realm where
Yes,
I live. You're in
yes.
Atlantia. So how many teams usually enter Revenge of the Stitch?
There's generally at least five or six. We have had up to 8 teams, and they have a great big huge hall, and we have several very long tables that we set up, and you have people sitting around, and we generally have at least a couple bards in the group and that just come in to sing for us or play music for us. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, I want to strangle them. It's kind of like, go away. I'd like to take a nap now. My brain is fried. Anyway, so that particular year of the pandemic, decided I had been putting all my stuff together to make a new outfit, and we had what we were going to do is we had a couple of people who wanted to be jesters, and so we were going to do the whole jester outfit. We were going to do it, multicolored, and we were going to piece the fabrics together. The year before, we had hand stamped dollar fabric. It was nuts, but it was gorgeous. Anyway, so we couldn't do it. And there were a lot of us that were bemoaning it. And I said, fine, let's do it online. So I set up the first Revenge of the Stitch Plague Edition online as a group. and we are now getting ready. In 2 weeks, we'll be doing our 17th edition. We've been doing it that long. Every 6 weeks, we get together, and I have anywhere from the first group, we had like 12 people that showed up, and it didn't matter. We had guys and gals, and we even had some kids at one point, and all they had to do was be able to use a needle. Was, that was it. That was my whole thing, was you have to use a needle in some way. So some of them were knitting and crocheting, some of them were quilting, some of them were sewing. We did get some woodworking in there too, because eventually we changed the name to Needles, Fiber, and More. So more could mean anything. But they were basically coming in and just doing SCA projects. They were getting rid of their to-do list. And I have people from all around the known world that participate. It's great. It's a
So
lot
is
of
it,
fun.
I was just going to ask if it was expanded beyond Atlantia. It's good to
Oh
know that it
yeah,
has.
yeah. Anybody who wants to join, I have no problem. I got people, from out. Um, can't remember I don't remember the name of the kingdom out west, in Utah and Idaho and California, and
Artemisia,
yeah,
Onstiora. Yeah, Artemisia
yeah,
is
yeah.
Utah.
We've got some down from Texas. I've got people. Every once in a while, I have a lady that shows up from Germany, because it's a 48-hour event. We start on a Friday afternoon at 5, and we end Sunday at 5.
Wait a
And you
minute.
don't
Are
have
you,
to.
do you, okay, but you're the host. When do you
Yeah.
sleep?
Well, you know what? That's the whole beauty of it, is that nobody has to stay up all night. There's 48 hours. Take the 48 hours and use it however you want. So some of people will start at 5 o'clock. Everybody has to check in at 5 o'clock. They have to tell me what it is they're planning on doing. And then they all check in about 10 o'clock to tell us what their progress is. And so I have all sorts of pictures and everything of what people have been doing, the progress that they're making as they go along. And then they check in again the next morning at 10 o'clock in the morning so we can see where they're at. And then they check in again at 5. And then they do the same thing the following day on Sunday. They check in at 10 and at 5. We close Sunday at 5 o'clock. So some people can only come in for one day, and they come in and do whatever they can, but they always post what they're doing. And it works out really well because people work at their own pace, but everybody is so supportive. They all tell them what a good job they're doing, or they really like the colors that they're using, or those kinds of things. And so it allows people doing whatever it is that they need to do during that time. And it's because there's so much support, they come back every 6 weeks because they have another project they want to work on, because they know that the people there are all there to support them. And they'll say, oh, I really like that color. Or, man, I can't believe the fine stitch work that you're doing. Or we get people that are doing woodworking. I've seen some people that were doing armor, So we have guys and gals both working on whatever projects it is they need. But because of the support system and the fact that everybody's so positive, we've not had any negative comments at all. Everybody's out there to support everybody else. And that's what makes it work. And it works better than when we were doing it live.
So if someone's interested in joining you in 2 weeks, how can they do
Yep.
so? How do they get
They
involved?
go to the Facebook group Needles, Fiber, and More, and say they want to join, and I say yes.
So it's called
And then
Needles,
that's it.
Fiber, and More is the name of the
Yep.
group. There's no
Needles,
Revenge of the
Fiber, and
Stitch.
More.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
That's the name of the group. It's open to anybody. Um, it, I even have some people that are mundane that have joined because they have projects they want to work on. And so it just doesn't matter.
I'm really impressed with how you've used. I know Lucas is waiting, and I keep
Yeah.
jumping on him,
I have a
jumping on
list of
him.
things, but
All right,
just,
I'm just gonna say this one thing, that I'm just really impressed with how you have utilized technology in the past 2 years. With everything you're doing, it's just so impressive, and I, for one, really appreciate the hard work you've put in. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I do because I enjoy it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it.
Right. All right, Lucas, take it away.
So just going through the resume, listening to you talk, whatnot. What is your relationship with competition? I feel like again, a lot of what you've done has been springboarded by the thought of competition. Do you think that's important when it comes to society? Like, what do you think the benefits of the competition aspect are, if
I
there are any?
honestly don't like competition all that much. Because
Your
especially,
resume would beg to differ because you're winning a lot of things and you've started a lot of things that sound like
well,
competition.
the thing is, especially with the Needles Fiber More or Revenge of the Stitch, I do it because I can be with other people. It's more about being with people and doing stuff together. Um, but the Needles Fiber More, it's more of a just a challenge. It's a challenge, and we have pretty much in Atlantia. We still have competitions in Bardic, but we're not doing as many competitions. We're doing more challenges, and pretty much the kind of crazy idea that everybody wins or everybody's good, kind of thing. Because Bardic competitions, unfortunately to me, are very lopsided. You can get a group in there, and they all like one particular kind of thing. And if you're not performing that kind of particular kind of thing, even if you are rocking the house, you're not going to win.
Hmm.
And then people come up to you afterwards and they go, "Oh, you should have won. You were the best." And then that makes you feel good, and it also hurts
Right.
because you didn't win. And so I'm I kind of sit on the fence post about competitions. I mean, I do the cooking competitions because it's fun because I get to cook outside.
But
You know,
you have been Royal Bard, and
I
there's
have been Royal
competition
Bard.
for that. So how did that come into being? What made you decide to compete to be Royal Bard of Atlantia?
Well, I actually didn't know I was competing to be the Royal Bard of Atlantis. Okay, so I'd only been in the SCA for 3 years when I went in, and it was the 12th night, and they said, "Oh, we're going to do some storytelling. You should come tell stories." And I said, "Sure, I've always got stories." So I went in, and I was competing with Sophia the Orange. And she was the one that kept egging me on that I should keep doing it. And so went in and I told a story, and they said, "Oh, great, we're going to do it again." And I said, "Okay." And we did it again. And the next thing I know, the final round was, "You're going to be performing at Feast." And that was where the final round was. And I told my story of Silly Jack to a feast hall that was 2 stories high. Okay, so they had an upper deck, and they had tables and things up there as well as on the ground floor. So it was very hard to perform in that space. You both know that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they called up the people that had been performing, and by that third round I knew I was competing, and I didn't know what I was really competing for. And they told me, the king goes, he says, "I've decided who should be the next royal bard, but we have a problem with that." And I thought, "Oh, gee, what's the problem?" And he says, "She's not a lady of the court." And he says, "So I'm going to have to fix that." So right then and there, he gave me my AOA
Wow. And then he
because
made
he
you his
wanted me
bard.
and made me the royal bard.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what
And
is it like to be a Royal Bard of Atlantia? What's the job of a Royal Bard in Atlantia?
well, I kind of step things up a bit, as you know I do. Um, it was basically to go to as many royal events as you could, to be there to support other bards, make sure that there was some kind of bardic activity going on. Um, Not necessarily competitions, but just, bardic circles or opportunities to perform. Um, my thing is that I really think that bards should perform more before court, just to get people to in. sit down and be there.
Right.
The pre-show. So I was trying to do those kinds of things and to make sure that there was more bardic stuff going on. And I ended up creating some mini bardic songbooks and ended up, I made 4 of them. One was full of nothing but filk. One was traditional songs. One was Yule or Christmas songs. And what was the 4th one? Oh, war songs of war. Because we had a king that liked to sing, and he liked songs of war. So I went through and I created 4 what I called the mini bardic songbooks, and we ended up using those as a fundraiser for the travel fund for Atlantia. And so I created 4 of those while I was Royal Bard. And one of these days I said I should just re-release those and just put them out there so everybody can have, copies of all those, because it was a lot of songs. They were 20 pages long each book, and there was a song on every page.
Wow.
And being that I do a lot of things in publishing, of course, I had to make them look like a published book. So yeah, I made them look good too.
Nice.
But
Go ahead, Lucas. I keep interrupting you when you're asking questions. I got so used to doing this on my own.
Well, I know. So what I've noticed is, just in talking, and again going through the resume because it was cracking me up. You had one thing where you gave all the gifts were in Star Trek versus Star Wars. You have Revenge of the Stitch. We had our little pre-show talk where I ranted about the Star Wars movies. And when do you feel it's kind of important to, like, is that your way of kind of bringing people through the door? Is kind of doing the anachronism in the Society for Creative Anachronism. You know what I mean? Like,
so what was so fun about that particular competition was, my daughter, they were doing this thing about pairs or couples for the competition for Garb. And my daughter said, "Oh, let's do something from Brave. And you can be the mom and I will be Merida," because my daughter has red curly hair. And so, of course, mom said, "Okay, yeah, I'll make those." And it wasn't so much about the competition as I could do something with my daughter. So we made them and I won that competition. And that meant that I was in charge of next year's competition and I got to pick the theme.
And what did you
So
pick?
I picked the Star Wars versus Star Trek. But they had to do it in period. And that was what was fun.
How many red shirts were there?
Actually, there
none
wasn't
by
a
the end.
lot. And the person that won did an Ewok. They made a beautiful mask. It was covered in fur and everything, and then they had the outfit like the Ewok, because what they wore was fairly period, just like a lot of the Star Wars stuff. We had a Leia coming in all the white, and they had to bring documentation and everything. So it was fun. The year before we did cartoon characters, and so we had everything from Ninja Turtles to the Pink Panther to we had someone that came dressed as Medusa. And what she had on a real nice Greek outfit, and she had a necklace that was full of serpents.
Wow.
And so they were a lot of fun, and it made people really think outside of the box, because you can look at things that are happening in today's world and say, how do I make that fit into what we're doing today? And how is there something that looks similar in nature? Star Wars was easy, because a lot of the stuff that they wore fits period, because they used that for research.
Mhm, mhm.
So do you find, I mean, in your storytelling, I mean, again, you kind of teased this a little bit at the beginning, but even with events like that, is there pushback? I mean, are there, again, you
Oh,
always hear,
there's always somebody that's got a stick up their behind about it, but they don't make too much noise about it as long as you're trying to make it look period.
hmm,
And that's the whole thing. As long as you're sticking within the time period, even though you pick a subject that's out of time period, they don't
yeah,
seem to gripe too much about it.
the minute you brought that up, there is a woman. I think she's been doing it for a while, but I keyed into her. I think it was the last Penza that we had. Um, every day she wore a dress, a period dress, a different style dress, but it was all themed off of a individual Pokemon.
Oh, well, sure.
I mean, it was gorgeous, and you just found yourself kind of seeking her out daily to see, okay, well, how did she turn this, this cat Pokemon into this Persian outfit or this into that? Like it was incredible. So I happen to love stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, it's like how many different versions of things did I see of Padme?
Mm,
You think about the things that she wears, okay, so I can make some of those things Japanese and I can make some of those things, this period. And it was pretty easy to be able to do that. I mean, even the coiled cones that she wore on her head, they were able to make it all period.
yeah.
And that's what made it fun. But the Ewok, I mean, she went through a lot of work to make that mask, and it was unbelievable. She won, of course.
Nice. Well, we're almost out of time. Lucas, do you have any other questions for Scholastica before we hit our final question of the night?
I almost feel like for me we could do like a part two and a part three. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I just, like maybe every season Scholastica comes back and just kind of thing, like a little friend of the show, and then she comes back. But this has been amazing. I just out of curiosity, are you still performing in theater in like mundane life and whatnot? Do you still perform?
There's not any theater where I live.
I die.
I, I tend to keep moving. My husband keeps moving me to a place where there's not a lot of theater. When I lived out west, when we lived in Arizona, I did a lot with the theaters there. In Tennessee, did a lot there. But when we moved to Florida, everybody was into performing at Disney or at SeaWorld or at any of those places. So theater was not a big deal. I did do some children's theater. I had a traveling children's troupe there for a while, but I thought there would be something here, and there's maybe, and the traffic is so bad. I am not about to go into DC. There's just no way. And what they have in Annapolis is very cliquish. So
Okay.
unfortunately, I haven't been able to do much. Although I
Maybe
did get
you
to perform at with Known World when they needed a fill in at the last minute.
That's what I was gonna say.
That's your
Maybe
fault.
you should audition. But maybe you should audition for a known role players show.
Well, there's
Romeo
always
and Juliet at Pensick 50.
Or
I
49
think
or
I'm still.
49F or what?
Um,
All right, time for the last question of the night. Scholastica, in your opinion, what can the SCA do better?
they cannot scare people off to compete with documentation. Hate documentation. Because at least in Atlantia, they expect you to write a dissertation. The documentation is just, it's ridiculous. Why would anybody want to compete? People have gone to just displaying what they're doing because they don't want to do the documentation because it's just gotten out of control. Um, that, and I think that performing arts needs to have more respect, because I think that as a performer, whether you're a dancer, whether you're a musician, whether you're a bard or a thespian, um, for crying out loud, even the people that do fiber arts and all that, I just don't think the arts get the respect that the fighters get. In Atlantia, fighting is the whole thing. It's the whole ball of wax. It's the most important thing, and it depending on who your king is, your royals, it depends on whether or not ANS gets a whole lot of respect. And I just think that the whole point of the ANS is to the whole point of the SCA is to help promote the time periods and have fun at the same time. And sometimes people take it too seriously. It really is just to be able to learn about the time period and to have fun doing it. At least that's the way I feel it should be.
Okay. Again, we were talking with Scholastica Joycors. Any final words, Lucas, before I tell them who's coming up in 2 weeks?
Again, it was great to be back. I'm happy this was my first guest upon returning to the fold. And as always, I love all the people that we meet, and so hopefully this is me for a while. So the world doesn't swallow my life again. So
Let us
I
pray.
yeah, I mean I Scholastica. I'm right now directing my high school show because that's what I do, and then I'm going into community theater after that, and then through the summer, whatever we end up doing at Penzig, Penzig. So
It's gonna happen. I totally believe that it's gonna happen this year.
I do believe it'll happen. It'll be by the skin of our teeth, I think. It'll be a last minute decision, but I think we're just they're finally going to get to the point, I think, where they're going to say, "Oh, we just have another case of a bad case of the flu. Let's move on."
Right.
And Scholastica, I'm probably going to hit you up offline because you got my juices flowing with the traveling stage idea.
Oh, we got my juices flowing. We just need to get a wagon. We need to go get an
Well,
Amish people's wagon, just like the
but we
mystery
have
cycles.
I mean, again, down where I live and with all the people that I work with, I mean, every year we put up a 27-foot pirate ship and a full working bar and everything. And all that stuff gets trucked in and trucked out and lives
Where
up there.
were you when I did the Wakefield cycle? Oh my God.
Probably there. I've been going to Penzing for over 20 years. So,
Well, here's the thing. Being that my parents were in summer recreation, they did have a traveling stage. And so when I think about that, I performed on a traveling stage as a kid. And so I think how nice that would be to have a Penzic that you could take. I mean, it could be there, it could show up to be at a coronation or, any kind of big event. You could just take it to wherever they wanted to and just pull it in and park it and voila, live
All
stage.
right, we'll talk. We'll talk.
talk.
We'll talk. Okay. So our guest in 2 weeks is going to be Dabrashka Izoka. I know I'm saying her name wrong. If you know Feed the Ravens, who does amazing pottery, it's Maggie, who is just an inspiring, amazing, incredible human being and artist. And I'm really excited to have her on our show in 2 weeks. We were talking with Scholastica Joycors today. If you have ideas for guests, please let us know. Send us a PM. Just look for Simply SCAdian, no title required on Facebook. Send us a PM. We do have a form as well you can fill out. We would love to talk to people from all over the known world. We haven't had anybody yet from Lockhack. I mean, it's morning time over there. So there could be somebody, there's got to be somebody in Australia who wants to talk to us. There's got to be. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. This was Simply SCAdian, no title required. See you in 2 weeks. Thank you, Scholastica.